All set when you are.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the order the meeting of the Sutton Planning Board for December 14th, and it is now 7 o'clock. I have to read my statement here. Excuse me for a minute. Because of the COVID crisis, we have a statement we have to read. It's called the open meeting of the Sutton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's orders due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Excuse me. While still ensuring public access, this order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Regardless of our inability to meet in person, it is our intent to ensure continued transparency and the ability of the public to at least view the actions of our board. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Tonight's public meeting may feature public comment. For this meeting, the Sutton Planning Board is convening by Zoom teleconference as specified on the legally posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and that you take care not to screen share, quote unquote, your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Thank you. And the first item on the docket is a Form A for 359 Manchog Road. It's a revision. Jen, could you give us the highlights on this one, please?
Sure, I'll share the plan to the screen. You have seen this plan at least once, if not twice before. This is the part of Manchog right at the post office. Here we go. All right, you see that okay?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is right where Putnam Hill Road comes down into the center of Manchog at the blinking light. This is the post office right here. You've signed this plan before. The zoning board actually gave a frontage variance on the northern part of this lot. The town meeting voted to transfer this little baby parcel here to be combined with the post office parcel. And in exchange, TJJ Development is going to give us this middle parcel that will be working on a public park on that. This was all voted and signed by the board at least once, if not twice. And then when it went to the assessors, Nick Nunemacher found some things on the plan that he really thought should be corrected. It had gone to Nikki before, but it was in a preliminary state, so those things weren't on the plan yet. So all you're being asked to do is to just vote to endorse this again with those minor revisions. And they included right here, it used to say Canal Street, and that is actually, that's that little island where the welcome to Manchog sign is, and the Christmas tree and the flagpole and the Matichek monument are. And they had this labeled Canal Street right here, and that actually is not a street. This is all, as you see it right here, it's all just one blob of land owned by the town. There's no street name there. So that was fixed. And then Nick had expressed his concerns with these drill holes up here that will separate the new town land from private land. They actually said to be set on these drill holes and stuff. And he was worried that if we left it as to be set, that they'd never set those points. And it's really important we understand where this lot, like right here, where this lot, private lot ends and where the public lot starts. So they went out there and actually set all the points that said to be set and updated the plans. So we know these points are out here in the field now. So just minor changes, still the same area, still the same lots pretty much. And hopefully the selectmen will be able to carry out that town meeting vote tomorrow night or in the very near future to just transfer this over. So that's it. That's the long and short of this one.
Do we need a motion for
Yeah,
these additions to the plan?
Yeah, you just do the motion to approve, and then you can see the new revision date is December 9th. So just to approve the modifications to the Form A plan dated 12/9.
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Mike.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the board? Do we have any comments from the general public? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. The chairman votes aye. Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bill,
Bill Talcott, aye.
is Scott on here?
Aye.
Oh, okay. Good to see you. Okay, and Kyle is not here, so the vote passes 5-0-0. Okay. The next item up here is the Forest Edge surety. I know we talked about this the last time and on the last meeting, and
Yeah, so I've got some clarifications for you. My faulty memory cells and John Bruce had faulty memory cells as well. I will again share to the screen with you in a minute an updated bond estimate. And basically what happened is we were trying to remember, John Bruce and I had thought that that we had rolled phase 1 and phase 2 into the same bond. We actually hadn't. There's a separate phase 1 and a separate phase 2 bond. And this just came in today. It was just shared to the drive. So the members who aren't logged to the drive probably don't have this. So, but we'll go over it right now. So there's 2 separate surety agreements. And the good news was, I thought we hadn't extended the phase 2 surety agreement we had. We extended it all the way to February of this year, and then it was covered by the automatic COVID extension. So last meeting, we extended that out over a year until November of next year, or December of next year. And we voted, I keep saying you voted a $60,000 bond reduction with Graves's approval, which is a good thing because Graves just turned in this reduction. And as you will see, phase 2, they want pulled down only to 93,000. That's rounded up. So 92,870.40. The previous bond was 135 and change. If you take off 60, you only leave about 75,000. So this is all we'll be releasing. So you can revote the phase 2 reduction if you want to the 92,870.40. Otherwise, I'll just kick in with Graves's approval and say Graves didn't approve that full amount. This is all they approved. So probably cleaner if you just revote that. Phase 1 needs an extension. This is what they have left to do on phase 1. Removing some sediment from flared end section number 1, which is to the left of the driveway as you pull into the complex. Graves Engineering had forgot that the board waived back in 2018 these do not enter signs, thought it had been working smoothly. Nobody had tried to go up the wrong side of the driveway, so we left these out. So those come out of the bond, and then the as-built plans are not done. So you would pull out 500 plus 20% of that. So, $600 out of this, and that bond can be reduced to that number. So 14,280 minus 600. And that can be reduced to that amount. Now, this is all that's left to be done there, the as-built plans and this sediment work. So I really wouldn't give this a year extension. I would recommend that you only give this maybe to July 1 or even June 1, just to make sure that this riprap issue gets taken care of once and for all, because we've had it on various inspection sheets since 2010, and that these as-built plans get on file. So that's where we are. So we have 2 separate phases, 2 separate bonds. these are your updated numbers on those bonds.
All right.
Okay.
Then I'll make a motion that we reduced the phase 2 bond for Forest Edge, phase 2, to a total value of $93,000.
Mhm.
Second.
Do we
Bob
have
Roger.
any? Second was about what? Okay. Do we have any conversation on this from the board? Do we have any conversation on this from the general public? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Chairman votes aye. Scott,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bill.
Bill Talcott, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. The vote is 5-0-0 to reduce it to 93,000. Can we have a motion on phase 1?
I'll make a motion on Forest Edge, phase 1, extension of time to completion to June 1, 2021, and a reduction in bond down to,
I think it's 13,680, I think.
So
can you hear
14,
me?
14 is the round number.
What was the net number on that, Jen?
I think Bill got it right, 13,680.
Okay.
To 13,680, and a
Yeah.
time extension to June 1, 2021.
Second.
Okay, do we have any further conversation from the board? Do we have any conversation from the general public? I should say comments, excuse me. Anyway, the chair votes aye. Scott,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bill.
Bill Talcott, aye.
Okay, the vote passes 5-0-0. Okay, next item up here is the PV crossing site plan review determination. Jen, could you update on the findings from our legal authorities?
Sure. All right, so we do have present Patrick Doherty from Midpoint Engineering, as well as Tammy and Kyle Barakis. And I don't know if that's Kyle's last. Kyle, is that your last name? No. You can fix it when you get on. All right, so as you know, per the last meeting, we voted to kind of waive the Route 146 requirement and allow signs in this project to be located on any of the 3 lots that are part of the project. I wrote up a memo. I sent it down to the building department and the zoning board of appeals because that was then going to go to the zoning board of appeals to rule on the number of signs and the actual location and whether that was allowed. And the building commissioner, who's also our zoning enforcement officer, just had reservations. He said, I realize the zoning board voted this on these kind of issues for Unibank, but I really just thinking on it, I don't think the number of signs is a dimensional regulation, like a 40-foot setback reduced to a 20-foot setback. He said, I just don't think that's a dimensional thing that the zoning board can grant a variance on. I think the only way it can be relieved is a special waiver, because otherwise it's kind of a use variance. And I said, I don't know about that, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, all right, let's meet with council. So we had a phone conference with council, and council agreed with him and said 2 things: that kind of relief on the number of signs, as well as the one you already granted, would have to be handled through a waiver. He was okay with the argument put forward by Patrick Doherty last time in terms of these received permits under 146 overlay. It allows waivers to any of the regulations within it. One of the regulations within it is you have to comply with the sign bylaw. But he did say you have to do that in a public hearing. You can't just do that in an open meeting. So Midpoint and the Barakises will be applying for those waivers formally, and we'll hear those ASAP in January. In the meantime, Patrick has kind of summarized everything. You have it in a letter, and I'm going to kind of let him speak to that in a second, or the chairman can decide to do that, sorry. And they just want to know if you also want them to apply for a revision to the site plan. Obviously, the only thing that's going to change on the site plan is the location of additional freestanding signs, should you grant the relief, the waivers that they're going to request. I mean, it would be a site plan hearing before you at the same time as the special permit waiver hearing, but that's completely up to you guys. So that's kind of a quick and kind of dirty summary of it. I can put any of the documents on the screen if you want to kind of read through them or question any sections of them. And like I said, Patrick is here as well as Tammy and Kyle, if you want them to speak to the issue or have any questions of them. So back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have any comments from the board members at this point?
Joe, yeah, I would think that if we're going to go through a public hearing process to allow these locations, that the site plan should be modified to show where these signs are going. That would be my position.
Okay. Anything else? No, Jen, we don't need a motion. We don't need a motion on this, do we?
No, I just need a majority of to know that a majority of the board also wants the site plan modification to be part of the public hearing.
Oh, okay.
And this is Patrick Doherty. My understanding was, we are definitely going to be required to modify the special permit under the Route 146 overlay district. And that we would need to modify our site plan if we were going to add anything to it. But rather than, do a separate mailing and have a separate public hearing for that site plan, it would all be combined under that special permit. Should the board grant us an additional freestanding sign, which we will be asking for, that would cause a site plan modification. In my mind, that's a very minor addition to the plan, with all that's going on. And that is something that could be done just administratively during the hearing, rather than having a separate public hearing on that site plan. So what we're requesting is not needing to advertise separately, and with the expense of that, we've got a whole slew of abutters here, and to have it all under the special permit, with the idea that should the special permit pass, the site plan review could be done at a meeting, not a public hearing.
I would agree with that. That was certainly part of my point, would include that.
Yeah, we can also advertise both, and then as you've done in the past, you can just vote the special permit first. And if there's an affirmative on that, then you can vote, because you're going to have to submit, as you already have actually, a site plan showing locations. Anyways, just to even have discussion on the special permit questions.
It's already been drawn.
Oh. I thought I saw it.
You did. I gave it to you.
Does anybody else have any comments on this topic?
Oh, that's fine, combine the public hearings.
Good night.
So just advertise both and then just vote them in order.
Correct.
Then
Yes.
there's no loose strings and nobody can say, hey, you should have done site plan review, even though that's the board's call on whether it's minor or not. If you just do it and vote it, then there's no room for argument
Yeah, I would agree.
or appeal.
And also-
I would agree as well, Jen, of what you've just spoken, doing it together.
Yeah. Bob, do you have any comments?
I'm uneasy as I was last time, but it's moving forward, and I just hope we're not setting a precedent for the few other opportunities we're going to have on 146. But we move forward.
Okay. So I guess the consensus of the board is that we move forward with this, combining both and identifying the exact location of the sign in question. If I, correct
So
me if I'm.
one hearing, advertise them both, one notification to abutters, one public hearing, all handled at once, and we'll just vote it in the correct order.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Everybody else agree? Okay,
Yes.
excellent. All right, I guess that takes care of that.
Anything else, guys?
Well, we got a couple more over
No,
here.
no, I was saying Patrick and Tammy and Kyle.
sorry.
Anything else?
No, that, I think that's all that we have for right now, and I am putting together, you know, a full application. Will be very detailed with, you know, why we feel that freestanding sign is justified.
Okay,
Okay.
All right,
Thank you
thank
for
you,
your
guys.
time.
Good night.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next thing is to, item on the docket is to endorse the plans for the Oakhurst Road Eversource gas, what we call it, reduction plan or step down plan.
Right. I will share those plans to the screen if you want, but I did send you, I printed just excerpts to the 4 members who get files because I didn't think you wanted all 17 or 18 pages of the plan, however big that is. We just need to, and Jeff Walsh came back today and said they look clean. And I
Good.
believe they also look clean. So we would be voting to, I keep doing that. You would be voting to endorse the Eversource gate station plans with the most recent date of November 30th, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Okay, Bob made the motion and Scott seconded. Do we have any conversation from the board regarding this topic?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll have a vote and chairman votes aye. Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Scott,
aye.
Bill,
Aye.
the vote passes 5-0-0 to endorse the plans for Eversource Oakhurst Road. Okay, the next item is from BV Logistics, a review process for the commercial land down in South Sutton. Could you give us a little update on that, Jen, please?
All right, so you have a letter just dated December 2nd from Mark Donahue from Fletcher, Tilton, and Whipple. They are the attorneys for Scannell Development, who will be moving forward on the Mary Bedoin land, which is east of Route 146 and south of Oakhurst Road, and west of Lackey Dam Road. The actual building site in this instance will straddle the lines of Uxbridge, Douglas, and Sutton. And we are looking at a 640,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility at this location. As you know, because you've seen the environmental notification form, this very large building, and it straddles 3 town lines. So what Fletcher Tilton is asking all of the boards you can see here in the different towns is to provide some information and some agreement on various things. We did have a staff meeting and talked about whether we thought it would be an issue to have one public hearing notice, to potentially combine hearings, but more easy, in my opinion, is to just all agree, at least right off the bat, that we just have one peer review of the project. So you wouldn't have an engineer in each town reviewing it and a wetland person in each town and traffic guy in each town. So we had a preliminary discussion on that, and the staff had agreed and the administration had agreed that if our boards approved it, because you ultimately have to approve it, we would like to use Graves Engineering for the civil engineering review, Greenman Peterson for the traffic engineering review, and Ecotech out of Worcester for the wetlands review. So that's one of the first things we need to do, is to see if you have any discussion on, I'm just having one set of consultants review for all 3 towns. And if you're good with those 3 firms, which are familiar to some or all of the towns. I know 2 personally, Graves, obviously, and Ecotech, who are both very, very competent firms. Greenman Peterson, I've seen their work, and it seems very competent. Douglas, in particular, is very familiar with them. So that's the first thing. Do you see any issues with one review by one set of consultants? And do you have any issues with these 3 particular firms? If not, I don't know if we should do a motion or if you just want to do a straw poll. What do you think?
For Wally Baker, it seems to me to make sense to have, the towns combining for this particular advice rather than doing redundant activities. If, certainly we know Graves quite well. And I assume the others, if you don't have any reservations or, negative thoughts about the other 2, I'd say go for it. And maybe we can combine some, activities on this project, with the 3 communities. Bill, do you have any comments?
Well, I think that's a good idea. I just, I'm waiting to hear the discussion about how we're gonna logistically get 3 boards together. Then
Yeah, we'll discuss that next. So,
that's what I'm waiting for.
Is this going to be expensed by area of building in each community, or how has that been figured out?
now, well, so we've already talked about the consultant fee. We have a
Oh, okay.
53E1/2 account. The other towns don't, or it's just not, they don't have planners in Douglas or in Uxbridge. They have an economic development guy in Uxbridge. They have a town engineer in Douglas. They don't have planners. So we have the revolving account already for consultant fees. So in terms of these 3 consultants, Scannell would send the check to us, and then we would just handle the billing and the payment of the 3 consultants like we do on any other project. So it's 0 burden to us, really, just part of our regular billing. So I told them I have 0 issue, and I knew you wouldn't care one way or another about us, the town of Sutton, handling the payment of the consultants on behalf of all the towns as it goes through one consolidated review. So that's the first part of that. So again, I just want to make sure I've got a majority of you in agreement with using doing a consolidated review and these 3 firms.
Who's the 3rd firm?
And then we can move on.
I heard
to the next.
GPI. Heard GPI and our consultant. Who's the other one? Who's the 3rd?
Graves Engineering will do the civil engineer review, and Ecotech does the wetland
Ecotech.
review.
Okay.
Yep.
As long as GPI didn't do the traffic study for the condo project in down the street in Millbury.
I was thinking of that when you said that.
They did not. That was niche engineering.
Yeah, there we go.
Niche engineering.
I think through the chairperson, I think this is, again, to set a precedent. I think it's a good example for 3 towns in the Blackstone Valley to think about aiming higher for bigger projects that will be maybe the Blackstone Valley, which will include 2 states, but to demonstrate that we can work together for things that are big for the region. We need to always aiming for those. So I can't imagine us not missing an opportunity to demonstrate an opportunity to do bigger and better things for the Blackstone Valley in the future.
That's a good point.
I would just obviously agree with all the other comments as well. It's a
All right,
solid
great.
Okay.
So the board unanimously agrees that these 3 firms are fine and that we're totally open to having just one consolidated review in terms of these elements. Okay.
Yep.
So
So let me just say though, it makes sense. It makes sense to me, but if there's controversy or disagreement with findings from these consultants,
Mhm.
you know, there may be some issues there. So who's orchestrating that? Who's the point person on, besides you, Jen, for this coordination? Because you're the planner that's in the seat, as opposed to the other towns who don't have planners.
Yeah. We haven't ironed all that out. We will be ironing all that out. But yeah, it seems like I'm kind of already kind of,
makes sense. It makes sense. You bring a lot of education and knowledge to the position, and you might.
well, you know, the town engineer and the economic development guy in Uxbridge also do as well. It's just from a slightly different angle. But so we did have last week online a staff meeting that included the town administrators and the town managers in these three towns, and those people, the town engineer, a member of the EDC in Uxbridge, as well as the economic development staff and myself, to kind of go through this stuff. And we talked about the next item, which is the consolidated administrative review. And to that end, we have already scheduled for Wednesday, a pre-filing development review meeting online. So fire chiefs, police chiefs, the representative from all three of these firms with confirmation. So I'm glad that went well. And a member of the Board of Health, all the regular development team members will be on this call from all three towns. And we'll go through Fletcher Tilton will lead through a preliminary plan review pre-filing. Because this plan is supposed to get filed in all three towns this month. So,
Wow.
so we'll be doing, so off camera, thank goodness, where no decisions are being made, we will have the staff pre-filing review with three different towns on Wednesday. So that'll be our first kind of foray to see how this may or may not work. The next question is, if anybody is opposed to joint meetings, because we will still be in Zoom mode in January when these hearings start. Zoom actually affords us an unusual opportunity to meet more easily as a large group. I have attended numerous workshops and stuff. I was on one a week and a half ago with 140 participants. I know, Wally, you've been on some Central Mass Regional meetings with,
Yeah.
you know, many
40,
people.
yeah.
Right. So, so they just want to know if you are opposed in any sense. The staff will work out, as long as it's okay with you, kind of, and maybe with the chair people of the boards, kind of logistically how the meeting will be run in terms of, you know, because in our individual meetings, the chairman runs the meeting, and then with Sutton, the chairman will kind of bounce back and forth with the staff to make sure everything's covered. That may or may not be the way it's done in each town, but the staff person would be working with the chairman of each board to kind of agree how we're going to run each meeting. All they need to know, Fletcher Tilton, is that the boards are amenable to that. They're okay with that, because if they're not, then obviously things have to be done differently, and they'll do it differently. And then I would just end up probably as staff liaison, or you guys could as well, because again, there's Zoom meetings, bouncing to the other towns' meetings to make sure we're all on the same page. So, you know, it's kind of onerous. If we can do it all at once in the same meeting, that might be a little easier. Logistically tricky, but doable. So I just need to know from you tonight if you have any objection to trying to do joint hearings, and then allowing your chairman and your staff people to kind of work out with the other towns' chairman and staff people, kind of how the meeting will actually be run.
I think it's the most logical, because it's going to avoid confusion. We said this in this meeting with Douglas, and we said this in this meeting with Sutton, and they're not the same. And so towards that end, I think taking of the minutes and approving of the minutes of these discussions among these people is probably fairly important, that are referenceable and et cetera. So I think it's a good idea. I think it's the only way to do it. Otherwise, I think there'll be more confusion than there should be.
Great.
I would just also forward what Scott said too, the consolidation of everybody hearing the same message at one meeting would be helpful. Again, it could be logistically a little confusing, but I know you can handle it, Jen, if anybody, so we have full faith in you being able to pull it off. But I think, again, it's just saving everybody's time and energy instead of multiple meetings and then having to work together with, one meeting, everybody hears the same thing, if possible.
Bill?
I agree. I just, in my mind, I'm just trying to figure out how you get 3 boards with 3 chairmen and 3 votes, but I will leave that up to Jen, the expert.
Not an expert on this.
Bob?
Jen, maybe we should probably be plan on, because I support this and I want it to happen. Scott remembers, I remember when Sutton Planning Board didn't have a town planner. And we were flying by the seat of our pants.
Those were the days.
And I think, maybe we should make sure we pause as we move forward and make sure this is working the way that we intend it to be. I want it to go smoothly. And if there's any bumps or kinks, we should be able to adjust them as we're moving forward, because we want it to move forward. But Jen, you're going to be in the lead position here. And I don't want you leaving. Sorry.
The one complication.
We need someone that's going to be able to do this. But make sure as we move forward, if there's some stuff we have to talk about, it's not the project that we're against, it's the process. We have to learn how to do this jointly and get a plan for moving forward with other projects. So I think it's worth great effort.
The only complication will be is that, as you can see from this letter, they are looking for filing before the end of the month, which would put starting hearings at the end of January, early February. So it's entirely possible that I will be helping you run these meetings from the West Coast, as my first grandchild is due the first week of February.
Okay,
So-
Grandma can do it.
But I can
That's right.
I can do it from my guest bedroom. I can do it from the West Coast. So as long as Tammy is on the ground here in Sutton, and she will be.
Okay, I think this seems to be the only way logistically that this thing would work. And certainly it's a lot more flexible for all the members of the various communities to participate rather than scheduling one night and, here, there, and everywhere. Especially with the winter weather potentials and so forth. So I think we should go for it, Jen, as you've described.
That's your plan.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Wally, there will I would anticipate likely in the very near future be a request for a daytime Zoom meeting with yourself, the chairman of Uxbridge Planning Board, the chairman of Douglas Planning Board, and their staff support, so we can kind of walk through it.
Good.
Sounds good. I got one conflict, but I could always postpone
around.
that.
Yep.
Okay, I'll go offline and talk to you about that. Okay.
Okay,
So I
we're
guess
good to go. That's it on that.
is that all
can
the
I-
action items? I'm sorry, Bill?
Yep, Bill?
Did you, so how are the fees going to be split up between the 3 communities, Jen?
That's another thing we need to talk through with staff. Likely we would retain the fees as they are, because the fees are about paying your staff to review the plans. So all of the same staff will be reviewing all of the same plans. So the only thing they'll save on is the one hearing ad. We've already agreed that we would do, if everybody agrees to a joint hearing, we'll advertise in the Telegram and Gazette, and they'll just pay that one hearing notice, because that newspaper is regular in all 3 towns. So, and actually, I think Uxbridge already uses that for their notices.
I
So they'll
wasn't,
only be paying, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
So they'll only be paying one legal ad fee. They'll only be doing one abutter notification because it's, they'll do a combined abutters list, kind of like on the gate station. They got the abutters list from Sutton, the abutters list from Northbridge. They did one mailing to everybody. So they'll do the same thing in the 3 towns and mail once to everybody. And then the staff review fees are meant to cover just your staff time. So ours is spelled out very clearly, but when I meet with the chairman and the staff members, when we meet together, we can kind of look at each town's review fees and make sure we're all consistent and that we're covering our staff time and not shorting ourselves in any way, shape, or form, but also not double and triple charging for things we don't need to charge for.
I was more concerned about how do we split up the Graves bill or the Ecotech or the traffic?
We're not, because they pay those. We hire them, but they pay, the developer pays them fully 100%.
So I'm sorry.
So,
You're right.
And in turn, they need to act in the benefit of all 3 towns.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And here's the interesting part is when you really think about it, a lot of the traffic from warehouse and distribution is going to use Route 146, north and south. However, I fully anticipate from the existing traffic flow patterns that there's a portion of the traffic that will then get off on Central Turnpike to cut over to 395. And there will likely be a portion of the traffic that actually stays on local roadways and slides east through Northbridge to go east of these locations. So Northbridge, we are actually making sure is fully apprised of everything that's going on and gets copies of everything that's going on, because even though it doesn't sit in their town, they're likely to see a pretty good traffic impact from what's going on here. And we really want to handle this. This is the 4-town area, and we really want to handle this regionally and fairly and make sure as other projects we're dealing with that are on town lines, that everybody's impacts are considered in the review and the development.
Good. Any other comments on this project?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll go to the administrative items. We have the minutes from November 30th. And hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve those minutes.
Do we
Second,
have a second? Okay, any comments? Hearing none, the chairman votes aye. Scott?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bill?
I'm going to abstain because I was not there.
Okay, Bob?
aye.
Okay, the
Well
vote
done.
is 4-0-1. Okay, where are we here? Singletary Arms, Burbank Road, Millbury. Have we had any future more correspondence from Millbury regarding this?
Let's acknowledge the filing of Worcester Stand first. So
Okay.
the Worcester Stand is coming in for their every other year public hearing.
I'm sorry.
And then PV Crossing, as you heard from Patrick, it's going to be filed. They didn't actually get it filed on Friday. So to log in on tonight's meeting. So that'll be filed soon. So if we can just acknowledge Worcester Stand, and PV Crossing will be coming in shortly.
Okay.
I gave you Blackstone Logistics. I gave you the certificate from the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. Basically, what
yeah.
that letter is it spells out everything they're going to have to consider and provide as they move forward with the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act offices permitting. So while this big multi-town distribution center is being reviewed locally, it's also being reviewed at a broader state level. And the letter that I sent you on that is everything the secretary wants them to provide at the state level. So as they get all that information out at the state level, I'll give you copies of all of that as well. But we should be getting the exact same things, traffic reports and things like that, out down at our level as well. So you've got another partner in this review at the state level in Mass DOT and DEP. And so it'll be well reviewed, put it that way. And
Is
then
this
the
the
last,
first, is
Go
this the
ahead.
first time we've seen an ENF
an
certificate?
environmental notification form, no. Gilmore Drive.
Gilmore
the-
Drive.
Gilmore Drive, the original subdivision filing, because it was on
Okay.
over
I
114
knew that we ran-
acres. Yep,
It's
the Home
alphabet
Depot
It-
Distribution Center also filed an
It rang a
ENF.
bell. It rang a bell.
Yeah, you've had a few environmental notification forms, but not for a while. You haven't had
Right.
one for a while.
Yeah, and boy, it's pretty thorough. Just trying to
Absolutely.
read it. I'm reading words saying, holy cow, this is not usual for us. It's
Well, it
been a
was
while.
really nice to see a lot of the agencies chime in and be really detailed. So that was really good to see.
Yep.
So,
Are these developers, do they have to have actually public hearings in front of the MIPA people, or is it just all by paper, sending it back and forth?
it's all by paper. They usually have what's called the scoping session. And they did, so it's notice, that one has notices to all the involved communities, and that was held online on Zoom, and I did attend that. So that's kind of a public notification process.
Yeah.
And basically the state's dealing directly with the local officials, and it's the local officials' job to deal with all their voters and residents. So it's like a tiered thing.
And the developer, then, who are they afraid of? Are they afraid of us little guys, or are they afraid of the state? Who do they actually care? Who do they
I
get
think they're
worked up?
afraid of anybody that's going to make them spend more money than they want to spend, or
Yeah.
anybody that can
Slow it
latch on to a bylaw provision or a provision of law that could stop a project in its tracks.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean, how much weight do they give us versus the MIPA people?
I think they give you pretty equal weight because it's just cleaner at the MIPA level. There's very specific standards. If they comply with, they're good. If they don't, they need to fix it. At the local level with special permits, it's much broader. It's much fuzzier. So, and that they need to work really hard to get special permits at a local level and deal with many, many more eyes on the project in terms of residents and voters. And then a special permit, if it's not well written or well decided, leaves them open to appeals. So I think they're probably more nervous about the local review process than the MIPA process. I mean, the MIPA process is very serious and they have to spend a lot of money, but it's much more cut and dry what they're expected to do and what they need to do. So
That
of
makes
course,
sense.
we're not trying to cloak anything or be, we want the local process to be as clear as possible too. But when you have abutters those are all
Right.
wild cards. So
But I just remember going back to the Home Depot.
Mhm.
I mean, I just remember the developer saying, MIPA's looking this, MIPA's looking that, but it never actually occurred to me the effect that would have versus, I mean, we were so focused on
our
Home
stuff.
Depot.
Yeah.
At least I was.
Okay, so what do we got? Okay, we have Singletary.
Singletary Arms.
All right. So Singletary Arms, they filed a new traffic study.
Oh,
And when they filed the new traffic study, it looked a lot better. But in my opinion, the numbers still don't add up well. They are showing some pass-through traffic, actually a pretty good number of pass-through traffic going past Stratford Village and heading towards the Sutton line. They, as I told you last time, put the traffic counter before the driveway to Stratford Village, but apparently they rigged it somehow where it would pick up the turning into the driveway as opposed to the pass-through, which is, at least that was good. So you knew what was passing through. You don't know where it's ending up, But we're gonna assume, because they didn't move it closer to the line, that every single one of those is coming over the line. So there is a significant number coming up over the line, as much as 30 something trips in the peak hour coming up over the hill. And at one every other minute added to existing traffic. And what we saw in that traffic modeling I gave you a few months back, particularly the intersection of Burbank and Sibley, is a real potential concern. I did have a discussion via email with the Millbury planner. She was reading things a little differently than me. We actually will hopefully sit down together tomorrow over lunch, almost 6 feet apart. And I need her to explain what she was saying, and because I think we're interpreting this different ways and we need to be on the same page. But the long and short of it is, I honestly think it is not likely that the Millbury Planning Board, as they wouldn't even put a counter on the town line, they're not going to require mitigation in Sutton. So I'm going to just kind of gather up the numbers and show you what kind of percentage increase might happen on Burbank and Sibley roads and at that very constrained intersection. And then you guys can decide whether you think it's time maybe on this. I mean, the width of Sibley Road as it swings is literally 12 feet wide from edge of pavement to edge of pavement.
Crazy.
And on the other approach, Burbank is 15 to 16 feet wide. That is a constrained intersection. It's crazy. The highway super and I worked on some new signage last year and put up signage as you come over the Millbury town line before you get to Wheelock, that basically says constrained intersection ahead, recommends you go out Wheelock or go out Burbank instead of Sibley, but that hopefully that you just don't even try to go down Burbank, you go out Wheelock. But that hasn't decreased things substantially because people are going up and over to 146, to Market 32, to, south. So we might want to think about whether we pop a letter over to the selectmen and say, hey, is there something we should be looking at from the planning board? Is there something we should be looking at, a conversation with the fire chief, the police chief, the highway super about potential improvements to this intersection? Because I'm shocked there hasn't been a fatality there yet. I'm really shocked. And
if it ever snows, that 12 feet will become 10 feet.
Yeah.
Can't do no place to put it. Gonna get tighter and tighter.
There's been 5 property damage incidents there in less than 2 years. 5 property damage, and you're lucky those were probably just, most of those were trucks who were too big for the intersection, getting stuck in it and having to back and knocking out all the stone walls on the sides. They took out a chunk out of the corner of the barn. It's just crazy. So yeah, you get any kind of coming down Burbank Road in slick weather, I'm shocked. And I'm happy, but I'm shocked. There's been no
moving
fatality.
truck. A moving truck.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, so I will just gather up some numbers for you. I've asked Central Mass Regional Planning to give me some base data so I can see if these numbers are accurate, and I have no reason to not believe they're accurate. I just need to see why they don't add up. And maybe when I sit down with Lori, the planner, tomorrow, together we can put our heads together and see why they do or don't add up, because they're off by a good 10 trips during the peak hour. And when there's only 30 coming over, an extra 10, that's a 25% increase. So that needs to be worked out. And then I have a feeling you're talking in terms of percentage increase over current traffic. I have a feeling you're talking a 400, 500, 600% increase over existing traffic, which is frightening, frankly. So, but I'll get you those hard numbers and then you can decide what you want to do. We can pop another letter over to Millbury saying, hey, we're really concerned. This is this much of a percentage increase. I just don't get the sense. And I could be completely wrong. They're meeting as we speak. So maybe they'll surprise us and say, hey,
They know we're meeting.
Jen,
What
can I
can we,
just, Jen, real quick, when you talk about Sibley and Burbank and making adjustments, you're really looking at it as the town of Sutton doing that.
Yeah,
Because Millbury's not willing at this point to make some assistance based on the new change.
yeah, they're not asking the developer to even monitor traffic at the town line, never mind pay money to make improvements in another town. I'd say it's near to impossible that they would ever require that.
But the way this works, and I haven't been here on the board that long, if another town has that attitude and looking, is there much we can do or simply voice our displeasure, but not,
You can appeal a decision. There's your option. And generally, we try not to get into head-to-head fights with an abutting town, but you have the same power anybody else has if you're aggrieved by a decision and you think there's in particular a safety risk that hasn't been addressed.
And then maybe the developer want the project to move forward, so they have to go away, do something.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said to you, and we've said in our letters, this particular type of project is good for everybody, but there are issues that need to be mitigated.
Right.
What do our public safety people have to say about this?
I was out there with the police chief. He agreed something has to be done. The fire chief, I mean, they all agree. The question is what? And, there's been discussions about maybe closing Sibley and just making it emergency access only. And then working with Jim Moran, who lives there in Leonadona, to widen the inside of that curb. So if you come down Burbank, you have the right radius for a truck to swing easily onto Burbank and not get stuck. And then you don't even try to make the 12-foot direction because there's just no room there between the wall in front of the barn. And you got to remember, Leonadona is not just a National Register historic district. It is a Society for the Antiquities property. So, I mean, it is double historic protected. And if you've spent any time there or gone by there any time, and Jim Moran welcomes everybody, there's been just a ton of money and work put into that property since Jim Moran has owned it to really bring it back to its original historic state. And, I think it's certainly from a planner's perspective, it's a really positive asset in the town, and to just wipe it out, for traffic from other kinds of development that can also be beneficial, and you lose something when you start to do that kind of stuff. So, but it's ultimately up to the selectmen what they're willing to look at and to ask be done to it. All you can do is put ideas forth. And again, like I said, the police chief and the fire chief both agree that it's not a good situation. But the question is, so what do you do?
Well, over lunch, with Milbury and politely, it won't be news that in the future, there's going to be we're going to have a conversation. We should be having a conversation with the town of Milbury on the aggregate piece of property. But if they want to take the stance there, so we won't do anything, and we'll just let that take all traffic studies, and we'll pretend that Milbury doesn't exist right there. It's the same situation. So we need to move forward for their current project and work with them on the aggregate property as that's developed.
I'll let Lori know that you said that.
Yeah. Oh, we can pretend they're not there. Look at what I'm thinking about the guy, the propane guy had to go through in Sutton, and then right next to, then he had to go to Milbury. It's like, well, he had to do everything twice because it was close to the property line. So he did it, and we worked through that. We could have just said the hell of Milbury, we're just putting it out there. We give you a green light, and we don't care about the. We haven't in the past. We've worked with Milbury in the past, and we should look forward to work with them and make the project viable and make it function for everybody. So have a nice one.
Yeah, great.
No headlocks.
No, we're good friends.
Yeah. And She has to present it to Milbury. Great.
All right. That's all
Anything
I've
else?
got.
Adjourn.
Okay, have a motion to close, please?
You've got it.
No,
Second.
okay, second,
Second.
okay. Chairman votes aye. Bill,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Vote
Well done.
passes 5-0-0. Good meeting, everybody. And
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.